Have you ever just stared at a map of a massive, incredibly diverse subcontinent and wondered what actually holds all of this together? I mean, I don't just mean culturally or historically, but legally. What are the literal foundational words that draw those lines on the map and bind over 1 billion people into one single cohesive entity? It's a totally fascinating question because a country's identity isn't just about the physical land. It's really about the legal framework that defines that land.
So welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to put on our hard hats and act as constitutional architects. We're literally peeling back the layers of history and politics to look at the absolute blueprint of a nation. We'll be deconstructing Articles 1 and 2 of the Indian Constitution, looking directly at the text to understand exactly how it brilliantly engineers the legal identity and territorial boundaries of the country. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The name of the nation. 2. Union, not a federation. 3. Defining Indian territory. 4. Admitting new states. And finally, number 5. The bedrock of unity. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the name of the nation. Before you can even think about defining the borders of a place, you got to establish what you're actually calling it, right? And the way this document handles that foundational identity is incredibly precise. Let's look at the exact foundational quote from Article 1. It says, "India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states." This single sentence is, honestly, a total masterclass in constitutional drafting. By stating India, that is Bharat, the text impartially embraces both the modern, internationally recognized name alongside the deep, historical name of the civilization. It essentially anchors the country in its ancient roots while simultaneously stepping into the modern era, beautifully bypassing endless debates by just including both. They sit side by side as equal parts of the nation's legal identity.
Moving right along to Section 2. Union, not a federation.
You know, the framers of this document really didn't just pick words out of a hat. The choice of the word union in that quote we just read is perhaps the single most deliberate and crucial decision in the entire text. Why a union of states and not a federation of states? Well, the structural difference is profound. In a federation, think of it kind of like a strict contractual agreement. States come together and agree to form a country, and they often retain the right to step away. But a union dictates that the country is completely indestructible. The states didn't come together to create the nation through some treaty. Rather, the nation exists as a whole first, and the states are simply administrative divisions within it. Under a union, no state has the right to secede. Period. This whole crucial point is summarized perfectly by this one phrase: an indestructible union of destructible states. Let that sink in for a second. The outer boundaries of the nation, the union itself, are ironclad. They cannot be broken. But the internal borders, the lines separating the states from one another, those are entirely flexible. Parliament can legally change state borders, rename them, or merge them together, making the states themselves entirely destructible, while the overarching union remains eternal. It's a brilliant balancing act. Which brings us to Section 3, defining Indian territory. So, now that we know what the country's called and the unbreakable nature of its outer shell, how does Article 1 actually categorize the physical dirt, the mountains, the rivers, the cities? The Constitution visually compartmentalizes the nation's physical ground into 3 distinct buckets. First, you have the territories of the states. These are your major provinces with their own functioning state governments. Second, the union territories, regions that are directly administered by the central federal government. And third, a very forward-looking bucket, acquired territories, which covers any future land that might legally become part of the country. The number 3. I really want to emphasize this because it highlights the comprehensive genius of this framework. These 3 legal categories cover every single square inch of the nation's map. If you are standing on Indian soil, you are legally standing in one of these 3 specific constitutional buckets. There's literally no gray area. The legal geography is totally absolute.
All right, shifting gears to Section 4. Admitting new states.
So, Article 1 established the House as it currently stands. But what if the House needs an extension? Let's read the strict definition of Article 2 together. It grants the power of Parliament to admit into the Union or establish new states on such terms and conditions as it thinks fit. Notice the immense authority packed into that sentence. This gives Parliament absolute power to bring completely new, external territory into the fold. Remember, this isn't about shifting those internal borders. That's handled by a completely different part of the law. Article 2 is strictly about looking outward and incorporating brand new land into the Union.
And this beautifully illustrates the mechanical nuances of that power. Article 2 basically breaks down into two very specific parliamentary abilities when it comes to external expansion. Step 1 is admitting a state that is already organized and functioning into the Union. Step 2 is taking raw, unorganized territory and establishing a completely new state right from scratch. It provides the ultimate flexibility for how the nation can grow over time.
And finally, Section 5, the bedrock of unity.
Now, it's super easy to look at terms like admitting territories and unions versus federations as dry, boring legal jargon, but I want to connect this directly back to your everyday reality. This is the entire deconstruction, tied together in one simple, powerful concept. Article 1 defines what the country is, its dual name, its indestructible outer shell, and its specific physical buckets. Article 2 defines how it can grow, giving Parliament the keys to welcome external lands. So whenever you look at a map of this vast subcontinent, you aren't just looking at geography. You are seeing the direct, physical manifestation of these exact two foundational rules, acting as an invisible, unbreakable glue.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. As you process just how structurally sound yet internally flexible this entire constitutional framework is, ask yourself, is a nation defined more by the rigid borders it draws on a map, or by the enduring, indestructible union it manages to maintain within them? It's a pretty fascinating balance of law and unity. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the blueprints of the world around you.